Welcome to Vanished Mysteries. This channel is dedicated to uncovering the world's most haunting true crime stories and unsolved disappearances. Every case we share is more than just headlines. It's about real people, real families, and unanswered questions that still echo through time. If you're new here, consider subscribing and joining us as we explore mysteries that the world cannot forget. Today, we revisit one of the most heartbreaking and internationally followed cases of our time, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. She was just 3 years old, a joyful child with bright eyes, full of life, on a family holiday in Portugal. But on the night of May 3, 2007, Madeleine McCann vanished from her bed at the Ocean Club Resort in Praia da Luz. No forced entry, no trace, no answers. Her disappearance became one of the biggest missing child cases in the world, sparking international headlines, endless theories, and years of heartbreak for her family. And nearly 2 decades later, the mystery of what happened to Madeleine McCann remains unsolved. Let's go back to that spring of 2007. Kate and Gerry McCann, both successful doctors from Leicestershire, England, were on holiday with their 3 children. 3-year-old Madeleine and 2-year-old twins, Sean and Emily. They were part of a larger group of friends, later known as the Tapas 7, who had all traveled together. The resort town of Praia da Luz, with its scenic beaches and family-friendly atmosphere, seemed like the perfect getaway. The group was staying in a ground-floor apartment, Block 5, Apartment 5A, just a short walk from the resort's tapas restaurant. On the evening of May 3rd, the McCanns and their friends decided to dine at that nearby restaurant. It was about 55 meters away from their apartment. The children, including Madeleine and the twins, were left sleeping in the unlocked apartment. Throughout the evening, the adults took turns checking on the children. Gerry McCann checked on them around 9:05 p.m. and found everything was normal. Madeleine and the twins were sleeping soundly. But at 10 p.m., when Kate McCann went to check, she was met with a parent's worst nightmare. The children's bedroom door was wide open. The window was ajar, and Madeleine's bed was empty. The twins were still asleep, untouched, but Madeleine was gone. A frantic search began immediately. Resort staff and fellow guests joined the McCanns, scouring the complex, shouting her name into the night. But there was no sign of the little girl with a distinctive mark in her right eye. The local Portuguese police, the Guarda Nacional Republicana, were called, and by morning the case had escalated into a full-blown international incident. The initial hours of any missing person case are critical, but the investigation into Madeleine's disappearance was immediately fraught with challenges. The crime scene wasn't properly secured. Potential forensic evidence was contaminated as dozens of people had walked through the apartment during the initial panic. The Portuguese police, unaccustomed to such a high-profile case, were criticized for their handling of the early stages. Border controls were not implemented for several hours, giving a potential abductor a crucial head start. The world's media descended on Praia da Luz. Madeleine's face was everywhere, on newspapers, television screens, and posters across the globe. Her parents, Kate and Gerry, made desperate, tearful appeals for her safe return. Their raw grief was broadcast to millions, turning them into public figures overnight. Celebrities and prominent figures, including J.K. Rowling and David Beckham, amplified the appeals, and a massive reward fund was established. The case captured the public's heart and imagination, but it also invited intense scrutiny. As the days turned into weeks with no sign of Madeleine, the focus of the investigation began to shift. The Portuguese police, under pressure to produce results, started exploring different theories. The first official suspect, or arguido, was a local British-Portuguese man named Robert Murau. He lived nearby with his mother and had drawn suspicion by acting as an unofficial translator for the police and journalists. His home was searched, and he was questioned extensively, but no concrete evidence ever linked him to the crime. He was eventually cleared, and later won substantial libel damages from several media outlets. Then came a shocking and controversial turn. In September 2007, 4 months after Madeleine vanished, the Portuguese police named Kate and Gerry McCann as arguidos. The police theorized that Madeleine had died in an accident within the apartment and that her parents had hidden her body and staged an abduction to cover it up. This theory was based on highly contentious forensic evidence. Specialized sniffer dogs from the UK had supposedly detected the scent of a deceased person and human blood in the McCann's apartment and on items belonging to them, including a rental car they had hired 25 days after Madeleine's disappearance. The evidence was ambiguous at best. The DNA samples were too small to produce a conclusive match, and the reliability of the cadaver dog's alerts was questioned by many experts. The McCanns vehemently denied any involvement, calling the accusations absurd and deeply hurtful. They were subjected to intense interrogation, but maintained their innocence. This development created a deep rift in public opinion. While many supported the grieving parents, others were swayed by the police theory, fueled by a relentless and often hostile media campaign against them. The McCanns returned to the UK, their status as official suspects hanging over them. In July 2008, the Portuguese Attorney General archived the case, citing a lack of evidence, and officially cleared both the McCanns and Robert Moura. With the Portuguese investigation at a standstill, Kate and Gerry McCann refused to give up hope. They hired their own private investigators and launched the Find Madeleine campaign, ensuring her story remained in the public eye. For years, a team of former police officers and specialists followed up on thousands of reported sightings from all over the world, from Morocco to Belgium to Brazil. None of these sightings ever led to Madeleine. Theories swirled. Was it a planned abduction by an organized group? A burglary gone wrong? Did Madeleine wander out of the apartment on her own? One witness, Jane Tanner, one of the toughest seven, reported seeing a man carrying a child in pink pajamas away from the apartment complex around 9:15 p.m. on the night Madeleine disappeared. This sighting was a key part of the investigation for years, but the man was later identified as an innocent British tourist carrying his own sleeping daughter home from a crochet. This highlighted the confusion and misinterpretations that plagued the early investigation. In 2011, at the request of the McCanns and the British government, London's Metropolitan Police launched its own review, codenamed Operation Grange. This brought a new level of resources and expertise to the case. Detectives meticulously re-examined every piece of evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and pieced together a more detailed timeline of events. Operation Grange officially moved away from the theory of parental involvement and focused on the idea of a planned abduction, possibly linked to a series of burglaries that had occurred in the area around the same time. This renewed investigation led to a major breakthrough in 2020. German police announced they had identified a new prime suspect, a German man named Christian Brückner. Brückner was a convicted felon with a history of crimes who was living in the Algarve region at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Critically, cell phone records placed him in Praia da Luz on the night of May 3, 2007. A phone call he received put his mobile phone in the vicinity of the Ocean Club Resort shortly before Madeleine was reported missing. Brückner was already in a German prison for other offenses. His past was deeply disturbing, and investigators believed he fit the profile of a predator. He had lived out of a campervan, which he was known to have re-registered the day after Madeleine disappeared. Police in Germany stated they had concrete evidence that Madeleine was no longer alive and that Brückner was responsible, although they have yet to disclose the full nature of this evidence to the public. Searches have been conducted in Germany and Portugal linked to Brückner, including digging up land near a reservoir he used to frequent. However, despite the strong suspicion, he has not been formally charged in connection with Madeleine's disappearance. He maintains his innocence through his lawyer. Nearly 2 decades have passed since that night in Praia da Luz. Madeleine McCann would be a young woman today. The case has cost millions of pounds, generated tens of thousands of pages of police files, and spawned countless documentaries, books, and articles. It remains a raw, open wound for the McCann family, who continue to hold onto a sliver of hope. Every year on her birthday and the anniversary of her disappearance, they release a message reminding the world that she is still missing and dearly loved. Never give up, they say. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann serves as a chilling reminder of how a moment can change everything. It's a story of a family's unimaginable pain, a flawed investigation, and a mystery that has captivated and frustrated the world for years. While the recent focus on a new suspect has offered a glimmer of a potential answer, the full truth of what happened to Madeleine remains hidden. Until that truth is found, she remains a symbol of all missing children, and her story continues to be a haunting question mark in the annals of true crime. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the world's most enduring mysteries. The search for answers continues, not just for the sake of solving a case, but for the memory of a little girl who vanished without a trace. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to Vanished Mysteries for more investigations into cases that deserve to be remembered. We'll see you next time.